When we study a literary text, a novel, a play, or a poem, it is very important to understand the context. Context can mean the time and place when the text was written, and Inspector Calls was written in 1945. The writer's personal experiences. What do we know about J.B. Priestley? The time and places referred to in the text. The play is set in the Midlands in 1912. An Inspector Calls by J.B. Priestley. J.B. Priestley was born in 1894 and died in 1984. He was very aware of the tremendous social and economic inequalities that existed in British society and wrote about these in his works. An Inspector Calls contains political, social, and ethical messages. J.B. Priestley wrote An Inspector Calls in 1945, and the play is set in 1912. In 1912, Britain was the most wealthy and the most powerful country in the world. In the map below, the countries that are in pink were ruled by Britain. By 1945, the USA and the Soviet Union, Russia, were the two world superpowers. In the map below, the blue area represents USA influence and the red represents the Soviet Union. Britain was no longer a world power by 1945. At the beginning of the play, the Burling family appeared to be very powerful. Mr. Burling may be awarded a knighthood, but at the end of the play, they seem to be totally powerless. In 1945, the Labour Party promised to create a welfare state. This meant the government would be responsible for all of its citizens from the cradle to the grave. The young, the old, the sick, and the vulnerable would be looked after by the state. Inspector Gould mentioned this in his powerful departing speech when he says, "We are all responsible for each other." By 1945, people no longer had to rely on family and friends or charities for help because it now was the responsibility of the government. We see what happens to Eva Smith when she was refused help by Mrs. Burling's charity. An Inspector Calls was written in 1945, directly after the Second World War. The First World War began with the gun and ended with the tank. The Second World War began with the aeroplane and ended with the nuclear bomb. An original photo of an army in combat. In 1945, the nuclear arms race began between the USA and the Soviet Union. If there would be a Third World War, it would lead to universal destruction. Before departing, the inspector ominously warns, "The time will come when they will be taught in fire and blood and anguish." On the 6th of August 1945, the USA dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. In 1 second, 80,000 people were killed and 90% of the city was destroyed. J.B. Priestley wrote An Inspector Calls in 1945, and the play is set in 1912. In 1912, Britain was the most wealthy and the most powerful country in the world. In the map below, the countries that are in pink were ruled by Britain.